Hello, welcome to the Pursuit of Truth. It is the 24th of July 2018. A few things to get through if I can remember them. First one is the article in the Scottish Sun, and I think it was also in another magazine as well, and on Twitter, is Beyond the Imaginary Curves. Dell was talking to a Celtic footballer, Lee Griffiths, and I know Dell on his YouTube webpage, Beyond the Imaginary Curve and Beyond the Imaginary Curve Live, has talked about this previously. But it's interesting because, you know, obviously I mentioned when Jamie was in the newspaper and this, that and the other, and it's just another example of how they report things to do with things against the established norm. Let's put it that way. It doesn't even matter that it's flat Earth. It doesn't matter if it was JFK, if it was 9/11, it would still be treated in the same way. It's just anything that is not established. And just because it's not established doesn't mean you can just poke fun at it. You know, look at 9/11, the War on Terror. You know, there were people like me who were saying that it was fake. You know, this 45-minute, these claims that they were making, that they were lying to us, and no one took it seriously. And so those people would be ridiculed. And yet now they're the people that knew what was actually going on, and the people who were the majority who were lied to, well, now look foolish because they couldn't see the most obvious thing in front of them. You know, the fact that common sense, they threw away their common sense and accepted, however ludicrous, the idea that a country that had been sanctioned many times and had a war already against them had managed to amass a weapon that could hit the United Kingdom within 45 minutes. I don't think do we even have a weapon that could do that? But the fact is that people believed that. They got rid of their common sense, and, you know, maybe they did have it at the time, but then they said, no, they must be telling the truth, and that's the problem. So here, obviously, the story of the Scottish Sun. Watch bizarre moment baffled Celtic ace Lee Griffiths is quizzed by flat earth enthusiasts outside Parkhead. Interesting how they build up Lee Griffiths as a Celtic ace. That's another thing, the difference between each one of us. We're all meant to be equal. All men are equal according to the Bible, according to the United Nations, you know, according to God, and according to the Quran, you know. Many different things, they were all equal. And yet we're not, are we? What is that famous George Orwell quote? All men are born equal, but some are more equal than others. Something like that. That's exactly it, isn't it? That's what he was talking about. Oh, sorry, that's my daughter. That's what they were talking about, is this fact that, you know, we are all equal, all the same. So why do we give stature to some people and not others? So anyway, the story goes on, and it uses its, it's got clips from Beyond the Imaginary Curve YouTube page gone viral on social media, leaving punters in stitches. So already setting up that, you know, they're not going to be objective about this. They're not going to, you know, try to be like the BBC line where alleged BBC line where they're not, you know, they're going to be impartial. They've already picked their side, picked their tent, and they're going to lampoon it. You know, even if it turns out to be correct, or even if it has fact what Dale was saying, they're still going to lampoon it even before they even played it out. And the other thing is interesting is YouTube and copyright. How Dale said he was one of the magazines asked him if he could use the clip, and he didn't get back to them in time, and they just used the clip anyway. It's interesting how his piece of copyright that's under him, and I know YouTube, they do have they have different copyrights you can pick, and I suspect it's probably under that it's a public one, so anyone can use it. So, but if it'd be interesting. I suspect if I was to play the clip from the Scottish Sun, they'd be accusing me of stealing a clip that's not even theirs. But do you know what I mean? Like if you go on YouTube and you play, like I've seen this many times, where YouTubers and also flat earthers have played a clip from YouTube of something, and then they end up getting a 60-day ban for using a clip that's actually on YouTube. But here, anyone can do it. It's been on Twitter. If you Google it, you find loads of examples of it. And it continues on, as you'd expect. This is a bizarre moment. Celtic ace Lee Griffiths lectured on the flat earth theory. The footy star was caught by a flat earth preacher outside Parkhead and was questioned about bendy water. Now, we live in a society where if you talk to someone who is of stature, somehow you shouldn't be doing it. You should not treat them like ordinary people. Now, it's interesting, if it was not been ordinary, he interviewed many people in that area, but they didn't pick up on any of those stories. They didn't talk about the other people he talked to. No, only this one particular person. Why? Because he's famous. Why does that matter? But you see how these things work. But the interesting thing they create names, you know, like Lee Griffiths is an ace. So this is in your mind. If you're a neutral person or you don't know anything about these things, you're going to pick that up and you're going to see that word ace and you're going to say, okay, he's someone special. Yeah. But when it comes to well, it's interesting how they call him a preacher. I suppose you can see that in either way. And then the question mark, bendy water. Why didn't it make them think, wait a minute, what do you mean, bendy water? I mean, when I was first coming across flat earth and this idea of bendy water, I thought, oh my God, well, I've never even thought about that before. I've seen the horizon, I've seen the ocean, I was born in Portsmouth, I've seen the sea. I've never ever thought about the fact that I can see that it's flat. I can see in my bowl it's flat. I can see all the bodies of water that I've ever seen with my eyes have all seen flat. And yet, wait a minute, this picture that Nash has shown us, this composite picture, shows the Earth as a globe and the water bending, everything bending in fact, like on a sphere. Or an oblong sphere as it now is, isn't it? Well, even though it doesn't look like that. So wait a minute, that's what made me think, wait a minute, I never even thought about that. I never even looked at those, you know, double thing, these two things that don't go together, that I've somehow put them together. But why this journalist didn't think about that? Wait a minute, bendy water? No, just let's make fun of it. Let's not take anything seriously. This is just another... I'm not going to read any more out. You can check the rest from on Beyond the Imaginary Curve. The video is called Flat Earth Celtic Park Activism 2. And but it's just interesting how it's treated. And the other thing, there was another interesting one. It was on, actually, I think it was on the, because that was yesterday's Beyond the Imaginary Curve live. I think it's on Beyond the Imaginary Curve as well. And then the day before, there was this guy, I don't know his name. He was talking about communities coming together, and yeah, I know sometimes Dal comes across as being like, oh, I'm just going to be on my own, and unity doesn't work. And you know, as me myself, I like the idea of unity. I see the purpose of it, but I see the downfalls of it. And it was interesting this when Dal asked him that, wait a minute, so did you ever think of what happens, like, if, you know, governments, you know, if shills and this, that, if they do exist, and what if they're actually creating this unity so that they can steer it in a certain way or take over it or co-opt it, you know, like they have done other movements, you know, did you ever think about that? And the guy's answer was no. And that just said everything. I mean, if you haven't even thought about I mean, I know we all want to be brotherly love, but we know the truth about how society and people are. That isn't the case. There's lots of different shades of people and personalities, etc. And, you know, there are corrupt people. We know that. They run the governments of the world, most of them. And, you know, they're out for money. There's lots of different people, some, you know, more moral than others, some more right or wrong or whatever. So how can you get a collective of people and not think about the idea that it could be infiltrated or could be led? Let me just do that. So yeah, so what I was saying is that it just amazed me at how, you know, that makes me wonder, how can someone, I mean, because like he was saying that Dow was too negative and seeing negatives and everything, but then when you come through all this lies and deception, and if you have genuinely felt those things, you would be very negative. I mean, I think that's a natural response. But I could see, you know, like sometimes you can be too negative, and that's a problem when you've been lied to so many times about so many things. It's difficult then to trust people. But then you've got to remember not to make the same mistake by just letting go of that and just trusting again, and then becoming a new community. And then, so yeah, I do understand. I think that, yeah, it would be great if we could all work together, but I understand that's probably not going to be possible. and that it will be disrupted, because there will be those that want to steer it in a certain way, and there'll be ones who want to be leaders. There's always that. You can see that even if you do like a role-playing exercise, there's always people who want to be a leader. And those are the people that often lead us into the wrong place, because their desire to lead overtakes, doing the right thing a lot of the time. As we can see, there's lots of people who are good people, and then once they step into power, suddenly they, like Tony Blair is a great example of that. Look how everyone had such high hopes for him, but once he met George W. Bush, that was the end of it, if you read into that kind of story. So anyway, that was my opinion on that anyway, but it's very difficult to know who to trust and who not to trust. There's so many different voices, so many different perspectives. And I agree, I think you've got to be careful, of how you tread. But then again, do we need, if we have our own voice and we can be unified together with our single voices echoing the same message without needing to be a group. That's possible as well, like we're all doing anyway. Or those that are doing that. So another thing is obviously Brexit. That's coming along badly. So now they're talking about we may have to retract some law that we've already made, and that we may have to keep their laws for another. So it looks like, as I expected, that Brexit never really will be delivered. It's just going to be, a pretense, a different way of calling something, which they always do. When they don't get their way, they muck it up, and then they just give it a different name, but it's actually the same thing. I suspect that it's like when everyone this was another thing about the lies that were told to us about, what some people believed, like laws that we weren't able to act upon because of Europe, and yet you turn out, and like if you listen to James O'Brien on LBC, he did lots about that, whereas these laws were always within the British jurisdiction, that they could do things, when it came to like setting targets and all those kinds of things. It was possible to do it, just they didn't do it. It was nothing to do with Europe, but people sort of either were led down that wrong idea. So that's another way, like, to be lied to. It's just, it just seems there's so many lies around that it's difficult to keep count of them all. We're lied to by many different people in power, and yet we still vote for them, and we still stand by their decisions, despite, I'm sure all of us can at least find in the governments that we've witnessed in our adult lifetime who've lied to us. Every single one of us, I'm sure, if we're honest, even if it's the party that we like, we can say that there is something that they lied about. And, well, doesn't that say everything? But why is it we still believe in this system of democracy as being a great system when it seems to be abused everywhere that you can go? Anyway, I think I've waffled on for long enough. Different subjects there, mix them all up. I'm sure there was something else, but I've completely forgotten it now. Please do leave your comments or your views. I'm interested to see what you think about any of the videos, whether it's on YouTube, whether it's on Anchor, whether it's on Spotify, Google Cast, wherever this podcast is being streamed. Which I know Anchor FM, they stream it on lots of different places. If you want to check out where it is that it's being streamed so that you can get it easier if you don't want to get it on YouTube, because I do tend to be a bit late when it comes to putting them on YouTube, because they go first on Anchor FM, because I record them on my phone. So if you go to Anchor FM, and I think it's under the English Poet, or the Pursuit of Truth, then you can, if you find my one, because I think there's another one there called that name, then you can find all the places where it is available, so that you can put it on those places and keep listening to whatever I'm saying, and comment back on what you think, because I don't want to just be this lonely voice, because there may be people out there that are listening to this and think, oh yeah, that makes sense, or that doesn't make sense, or oh, what about this? Isn't that why we communicate? I think that is. was part of it, other than liking to listen to your own voice. Anyway, I think that's enough from me. Take care, take it easy, God bless, and peace.